All right, champions. Today is tomorrow. We've siliconed the old caps to the board, secured them better, soldered them a bit nicer, cleaned up the board, put some two more appropriate resistors on there, replaced the bias caps with some known newer V-shays. We've dropped the diodes down onto the board. There's no need for them to be elevated up in the air. They're not dissipating a lot of heat. We've mounted the balance resistors down the bottom so they're out of the way of those two caps up there. We can get them a bit closer together but still far enough away that we can get the screw down through the board. So that one's, sitting off to the side, but it's now secure because it's silicon to the board. We've let that cure overnight. Same with this one over here. It's hanging off a bit. If we use Tube Amp Doctor or whatever, they would have been a much smaller profile. We'd be able to fit them all with the wires perpendicular to the board, but in this case, everything's secure. They're only 2019, so they're probably fine. 65 degrees Celsius is pretty lame for any capacitor, let alone a $35 capacitor, which is what these are going for. We've cleaned all the crusty flux off the bottom of the board, so that's ready to go back in. Still some work to do down here, but we've cleaned off the majority of that crud that was on the PCB down there. So I found many more cracked solder joints, so that would have led to some pretty hectic intermittent behavior, like literally cathodes of gain stages being intermittent and stuff like that. But in the process, I've also found some previous mods, so getting my head around this thing. No Mesa Boogie schematics are ever exactly right. In fact, a lot of the time, the cynical side of me wants to say that maybe they're intentionally obfuscating the design, even though 90% of it's ripped off from others. I put a new cap there, but over here, this node here, on the schematic it doesn't show a cap on this node, and there was another cap over here which it doesn't show either. But see this green wire here underneath, I can see evidence that there was a trace that went up here. Let me get my pointer. So you've got your preamp node coming down on this brownish wire. It connects to a trace there that goes off to this well, they're the two plate loads for the V1. You got a filter cap there supplying those nodes, or that node, filtering that node I should say. There's also another trace used to go across here. Now the previous person's ripped that off the board and replaced it with another resistor to create another node. So I'm not sure what the deal is with that. It looks like it was done a long time ago, and they've put a wire there because they've ripped the trace off too far and they've realised, oh hang on, we need to get it over here. I think it's hard to sort of reverse engineer the thinking or lack thereof, but point being, this comes over here and then you've just got a wire connecting to this, basically only supplying this node, this plate here, this plate load, and it had another filter cap which was aftermarket installed radial. You can see where it used to have the ground connection there, and it was just tack soldered over here, so we may have to reinstate that because this node otherwise would have no filtering. It does supply this one over here as well, that plate, so that either plate on this valve here. So yeah, it's kind of hard to tell the history of some of these modifications, and what was done. Could have been a well-known mod, could have been just someone thinking on the fly, but either way, customer was happy with how it was, and there's no biggie having an extra filter node there. So we'll put another cap in here, another radial similar to how it was before, but we'll use a recent Nichicon. Now you can see down here, I cleaned all the rust off the chassis here, and then used a bit of that sealant on the metal. It's probably not going to stop the rusting happening again where it's already pretty heavily corroded, but it will slow it down. And that jack that was there, it was just a standard Switchcraft non-shunting jack tapping into the signal input of the power amp. So I don't see the point of that, because you'd think if you were going to have a power amp input, you'd have a shunting jack, so when nothing's plugged in, the preamp can get through, and when you plug something in, it breaks the preamp off and just feeds in like an effects return. So I'm going to leave that out for now. If the customer actually does use it, we can put it in later, but at the moment I don't see any need for it. Alright, she's been up and running for the majority of the morning. What is it now? Oh shit, it's 2 o'clock. Okay, so pretty much half a day. Just sitting there chooching along, putting out a couple of watts, just to make sure there's no intermittency or anything. I've got the alarm set on the meters, so I've got the dissipation, so the voltage drop across the primary of the output transformer set to max mode, so if that goes higher, dramatically higher, the meters will beep like crazy. And I've got the plate voltage, or B plus, on the minimum setting, so if that drops, the meter will start beeping like crazy. That'll indicate, you know, something's running away current wise. You get the occasional fluctuations throughout the day. Someone turns on the kettle or whatever, and you get a few beeps, or, you know, some motor starts in some nearby machine and the mains fluctuates, and along with that fluctuates the dissipation. Nothing to worry about. But when you got constant beeping, like I had recently with those tube amp doctor valves running away, just beep, 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 you come over and you see it slowly rising. So yeah, that's what you want to keep an ear out for, and you can be working on the other bench while this thing's just burning in and making sure everything's stable. Alright, so I've just taken the grill off just to clean around the rim, give it a rim job, you know, and just to inspect the speaker, make sure the fasteners are tight. Now, it looks like, I don't know if that's from factory or not, but the screws are just sitting on the ridge of the basket, and that one's sort of in a bit, but I'll just see how they're sitting and just check that they're nipped up. Probably not a hell of a lot we can do about that other than drill new holes now and reposition the screws, but a bit strange. Seems to be a screw here that does nothing as well. Not sure what that's about. There's 4 of them. They're just pan heads going to nowhere. Not sure what that's all about. Maybe it just puts pressure on the grill so it doesn't rattle, maybe, when you tighten the other screws. That's probably it, actually. Just puts a bit of tension on it, because that screw's pulling in and that one's sort of putting a bit of pressure on it so it doesn't rattle against the face. I'd say that's probably why it's there. Now look at the grill. This is a bit of a funny one. So I've got 2 pieces of plywood which are joined together by 2 bits of solid what looks like pine, and that's actually the part that's buckled in a little bit, along with a million staples. You can see down there it's just a bit dipped in, but nothing to worry about. Just gave it a vacuum and a clean. That can go back on. And I gave the basket of the speaker and just the inside of the cab a bit of a clean, as best as was practical. Alright, Jamie, she's all done, so I'll just give you a quick look at what we did. And right as I say that, a customer turns up. Always the way. Alright, champion, so what did I do? Cleaned up a lot of solder connections, tightened a lot of hardware, new screen grid resistors. I'll put some new ones in there because I know it's only a matter of time till those carbon comps start drifting. They haven't really drifted much at the moment, but they will eventually. I've measured the voltage across the face inverter coupling caps there, and it's only about 320, something like that. So I think we've got enough margin there. That is a common problem with later versions with higher plate voltage there. However, we've disconnected the ground switch as discussed. We've wired it as discussed. I've heat shrunk the connections to the fuse holder there. We've bunched the wire up a little bit better. Anywhere I use heat shrink for a splice, I double it up, so double layer. I shrink one and then slip another over and shrink it again. Reuse the same power cord. It's okay, besides the power, the color codes being different, but its integrity is fine. And I took apart the plug and checked it out and actually re-terminated it, shortened it up a little bit because the jacket was ending just inside, and often that can pull out a bit over time. So now it ends right at the end of the plug housing. Got 2 new bias caps down there. Left the bias where it was, which is pretty cold at about 35%, but that is a Mesa Boogie thing. Got a new Nichicon, pair of Nichicons down there. Check the voltage across them, that's all happy and fine and dandy. Everything's silicon down, and it's actually stuck now. Before it wasn't stuck to the actual cap housing, but it was stuck to the board, probably because of contamination on the previous cap. We put it at axial here, just 22 mic. Makes more sense with the mounting points. I've gone through all the connections and reflowed everything, cleaned it all off, and soldered it, then re-cleaned off the flux so it doesn't go burnt and crusty and sticky. I've left the tantalum bypass caps in place for now. I have to order, if we want the same values as stock in electrolytic, I have to order some 15 microfarads. I thought I had some in stock, I've only got like 2. So look, I'll tell the customer we could probably leave it for now, but if he wants to be, you know, overly cautious, we can get them on order and he can replace them at a future date, because he needs his thing back this weekend. It's currently, what, 2:30 PM on a Friday, so no time to order now. We'll put a new ground there for the preamp. We've removed that jack, which was kind of useless, and we've got the other ground for the center tap down there, and the dedicated ground for the safety earth. Most of the work was just in giving everything a good scrub and cleaning off that crap off the preamp board there, and all the dried up hardened flux, all the hardened oil that was on the pot bodies up there. Luckily they cleaned up okay and they're performing fine, but I just cleaned up all that residue off the back of the pots, cleaned up all this wiring, did it properly so it doesn't look as amateur as it did before. Anywhere I've replaced some wiring, like some of the ground buses that were broken before, I've used Teflon coated wire so the jacket doesn't melt as you're trying to solder it. There was a 0.22 microfarad electrolytic there, which well, it was electrolytic, it was a tantalum, but I replaced that with the film cap, 250 volt rated, massively overrated, but that's what I had in stock. And we've got some Teflon jacket on the leads there as well. Just cleaned up everything on the front panel, removed the jacks, the input jacks there, put some new lock washers on there and cleaned up the chassis in that area just to make sure there was a proper ground at that point. And just rearranged the wiring wherever I could, just clean stuff up, replaced any melted jackets, that kind of stuff. So again, it doesn't sound like a lot, but cleaning these things is a lot of labour, and it's kind of the only way to have peace of mind that you're not going to have any issues down the road. So let's get it back together and submit you to some more of my terrible playing, as I want to do. I pulled this little Maxon graphic EQ out of the display cabinet up front. We thought we'd give that a go since this one doesn't have the EQ built in. It's a little bit fun using that and comparing the different curves and stuff. And being a 6-band, you got an extra band there, not that there's much happening under 100 Hertz, but you know, that's an easy, quick, cheap little thing to do for the ones that don't have the graphic EQ. They've got the holes on the chassis, but not on the faceplate. But you know, like what, $200 pedal, problem solved. Stick it in the effects loop, away you go. I might also point out, champions, that the noise floor is very low. Got some hiss there, but that's maxed out in clean. So yeah, very little hum, bit of hiss, but with that preamp ground being separated, I think that's really brought the noise floor down quite a bit. I'll just go into the lead mode, see how much noise comes out of that. It's quite a bit when you crank it right up, but that'd be a ridiculous setting since this thing's got a lot of gain. In realistic use case scenario, I think the noise floor's very low and nice.